Hello, friends and neighbors. Welcome to the Pacific League's unofficially official English language podcast known as the Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Gabe Lerman, and holy smokes, I can see the rings under your eyes from here, my fellow co-hosts. They were up at 4:30 this morning doing the Baseball for Breakfast broadcast. It's almost 10:15 at night here. Jimbo Bernicki and Mike Bealey. Gentlemen, how much coffee have you had? Are you vibrating yet?
Two things. I was up at 3:30 getting ready for the game, and also the only coffee I had was the one I had during the game. I don't know how I'm alive. I don't know how I'm operating, but I'm here and we're gonna do this. I'm running on pure spite. Let's go.
I had a large 32-ounce Dunkin' latte because I'm bougie, and Monster Rehab, that was during the game, and I think I had something else in between there. It's kind of a blur at this point.
Quick question. What is a monster rehab? You mentioned that and I didn't get time to ask about that.
It's like highly caffeinated like tea instead of all the other stuff that's in Monster that makes like your face hurt and your heart palpitate.
Okay, well that's pretty good, I guess.
Basically, if you're not cool and your mom doesn't let you drink Monster, you can drink a Monster Rehab.
See, I'm out with the times. I remember back in university, I got my hands on some Jolt Cola back when it was in the electric battery style aluminum bottles. I had one and I had like perfect mental clarity and focus for 2 hours. And then I don't remember what happened afterwards.
I remember back when I was around that age, the big thing was NOS, and they would come in those in those bottles that looked like NOS cans, like nitrous cans, and like I had like an anti-carbonation kind of thing in my life, but I had a friend who would just suck those things down. He's not doing so good anymore.
Anyways, apologies for disrupting your usual flow, Jimbo, but I feel like you could use the extra hands here with the agenda. Let's get to our leadoff stories, shall we?
For sure. Though I would still like to lead off. Let's start with the home run derby. We just had the home run derby over here stateside it was just yesterday, right? And Vladimir Guerrero Jr. won. Go Blue Jays. Go Guerreros. And so I want to talk about the home run derby we are going to have in the NPB. I believe, if I understand correctly, the format is 4 guys from the Central League, 4 guys from the Pacific League, and they go at it kind of one-on-one, and then they finally build up to a final showdown. Now, I would think it would kind of be set in stone on the Pacific League side, except Tomoya Mori is injured. So that's one of the best sluggers in the league out right now. So who do you guys think the 4 home run hitters should be for the Pacific League?
So I agree with taking a look at the overall ballot. I like Manami being in there, leading the Pacific League in home runs as of July 4th, and put it 14 last year. So he already has a new career high. Yanagita with 24 last year, I think makes a lot of sense. Sugimoto, given his history with the long bomb, I think 2021 was when he hit 30. For the 4 spot, I'm kind of thinking let's give Takeya Nakamura a final send-off. I'd be putting in for him.
Really? Okay, yeah, you know what? Okay, interesting pick, actually. That's actually a decent pick. I'm a little between, I was between Kensuke Kondo and Yuma Tongu, because he's having such a breakout season. I feel like we should kind of reward it, but also it has been, I mean, as high as his power has been, it's been more of an average-based season. It would be cool to see Takeya Nakamura get a final one, actually, now that you mention it. I could see that being a really cool idea.
I like the pick of Kondo. The only thing is the 12 home runs he has this season are a new career high already. I mean, it could have just been that his bat never really played with a Great Wall of Sapporo Dome, but this I'm not sure is a fluke or if it's his new regular for the Hawks.
That's fair. But I do think Minami and Yanagita and Sugimoto, those are like a solid 3. Those are, without a doubt, the 3 guys you have in. And if we had Mori, he would be the 4th obvious one. But yeah, that with Mori out, that 4th one really does become an interesting proposition.
For me, I'd say you have to put Manami in there since he's leading the PL. I think that's kind of a given. For second, I'd say Yanagita. For my third, I'm going with Sugimoto because if Sugimoto's an option, I'm always going to pick Sugimoto. And for your 4th, I also have to agree with Takeya Nakamura. But if not him, then I'd say Martinez for the Fighters just to get a foreign representative in there.
Okay, that could be interesting.
Good choice with Ariel Martinez, and one of my top points is going to cover him too.
Speaking of,
so I know we're going to talk about the All-Star rosters once they're settled, and Lord knows I'm hoping Yoshinobu Yamamoto gets that final spot. My actual headline is around foreign batters in the Pacific League. And someone on Twitter, I can't remember exactly whom, put up some interesting stats among all foreign batters in NPB right now. Ariel Martinez leads everyone with an OPS of 814 and 9 home runs, good for 1.7 wins above replacement. And that is boosted a little bit by the fact that he is that extreme rarity of foreign catcher, no less. He's doing this despite no major league experience, being that he's from Cuba. He hasn't defected yet. David McKinnon on the Lions is second with a 709 OPS and 1.1 wins above replacement, mostly on his defense. The only other positive value foreigner in the Pacific League is Marwin Gonzalez of the Buffaloes at 0.2. It's a tough season for everyone else. So the next time you hear someone saying, he's going to go rake in Japan, big asterisk there, guys. Also, hearty bonsai and congratulations to Takeya Nakamura of the Saitama Seibu Lions, who played in his 2000th NPB game back on July 6th. He's the third player in Lions history to reach the mark, 56th in the league's history. One of the other Lions, though, his teammate Takumi Kuriyama, who got to 2,000 games back in June 2 years ago. So it's rare to have two kinds of those veterans on one club, and for both of them to do it all with one franchise.
Well, this is actually MLB related, but I'll get there. The Chicago White Sox just drafted a Osaka native in the MLB draft as of yesterday.
Oh, cool.
I think you're going to start seeing more Japanese players in the MLB draft. There's been quite a few Koreans, I know that from, or just people from foreign leagues in general, I should say. But the Osaka native was taken the 11th round of the 2023 MLB draft with a 329th overall pick. He'd been playing at the University of Oregon, and I don't watch college sports, but from what I'm reading, he was a 5'6" infielder, 5'6". And he was apparently very popular with fans at the University of Oregon, not known for being a power hitter, but for slap hits, bunt hits, stolen bases, and overall just being a base path menace for opposing pitchers.
So in other words, your stereotypical Japanese middle infielder. His name is Riku Nishida.
You know who else was about 5'6", a slap hitter, and known for good defense and base running? A guy by the name of Dustin Pedroia.
Are we really going to bring him up again?
I feel like every show, just like the moment you were describing this guy, my brain was just like, that's Dustin Pedroia.
He will never leave me alone. I'm sorry.
No, oh man,
Jim's going to send you a Christmas card with his picture in there.
Yeah, I am absolutely. I'm like lucid at this point.
Before we get off on our usual round the horn, please take a listen to the one ad we're allowing ourselves to have here on the podcast.
So, you want to watch Pacific League games, but can't get up early during the week?
I work from home.
Or stay up late enough on the weekends?
I have a life, you weirdos.
Not to worry, we've got you covered. FTF Sports broadcasts a game of the day with English commentary, Tuesdays through Sundays at 1 p.m. Eastern. Check your set-top box channel list or visit ftfsports.com for streaming options. With FTF, the Pacific League is finally on your schedule.
And we're back, and so like we do every week around here, we are going to do our Around the Horn, giving us a in-depth look at every team from top to bottom of the Pacific League. And we will start with, of course, the league-leading Oryx Buffaloes, who we watched win a game against the Chiba Lotte Marines just today on the midnight, baseball for breakfast, I should say. Take it away, Gabe.
That win is the third in a row for the Buffaloes. They've gone 3-2 since our last recording, 5-3 so far in July, and finally putting some distance between them, the Marines, and the Hawks. We always knew that the Pacific League pennant race was going to be close. It's getting a little too close for comfort. I'd love to see the Buffaloes add on a couple more games to that lead. But hey, better position than they were in last year and the year before then. If we can avoid a tiebreaker on the last day of the season, that'd be swell. Where the Buffaloes are running away and setting records, though, is in attendance. They reached 1 million tickets sold on the season, one game faster than the previous record. I know that the Kansai area is still heavily tilted towards that team in the other league, but seeing the Buffaloes start to pack the stands and, winning a Japan series and 2 back-to-back pennants certainly helps. Maybe I can wear my Buffaloes cap around town in October and not get questions like, that's a weird Red Sox hat. What are you doing? Last week or 2 weeks ago, we mentioned Leandro Cedeno possibly getting the bulk of the DH at bat with Tomoya Mori out for injury. And sure enough, that's what's been going on. Cedeno became the first foreign batter in Oryx franchise history to join the team as a developmental player, so not someone who was signed to a major league contract, and hit a grand slam later on at the top level. The Venezuelan signed with the Cardinals organization as an international free agent at age 16, but so far with the Buffaloes at the top level, in 16 games, batting 310, 318, 571 with 3 home runs. Yes, small sample size, but darn, that's fun to watch. Speaking of fun batters to watch, Yuma Tongu still leads the league in batting average, but now only sits second in OPS. Yuki Yanagita has taken the lead there as of the start of this week. And after his 13 strikeout complete game on July 8th, Yoshinobu Yamamoto is only 13 strikeouts away from his third straight Triple Crown. I know Roki Sasaki is pitching the day after we record this, so it's going to be a bit of a foot race to the finish, but it's going to be fun. Yoshinobu Yamamoto also has the second fewest walks of any qualified pitcher, with only 12 so far on the season. The fewest is, of course, the control freak himself, Takayuki Kato of the Fighters, still sitting at only 8.
Man, only 8 walks so far this season. I mean, 12 is impressive, obviously, but 8, that's insane. I can't even wrap my head around that. That's like less than a walk per start.
Yeah, I cover that fact later on. Trust me.
And so that brings us over to the SoftBank Hawks, who are sitting in second place after a very weird week, because they beat the Fighters in a series, which is good, and then they went on a 4-game losing streak to the Eagles and Lions, which is strange. So they've gone 2-4 since we last spoke. Still, though, second in the league, hot on the tails of the Buffaloes and keeping up with the rest of the playoff picture. Both the batting and the pitching obviously kind of struggled this week as they kind of got knocked around and kicked around by all the other teams, especially the Eagles, which, I mean, I'm sure we're going to cover later, but they've come out of nowhere, to say the least. Though Yuki Yanagita continues to be very productive along with Kondo, but this week they kind of showed that even when they're on their game, if everyone else doesn't perform, they can't always win games by themselves, though they can win games by themselves from time to time. Keep that in mind. And just a little shout out to Carter Stewart. He had not a great game today against the Lions, going only 4 1/3 innings, but on the positive side, he looks good. The stuff looks good. It looks electric. He's got a lot of life in the pitches. He's just got to learn to crowd a little better and find the strike zone. I think he can develop into a very solid starter for the Hawks. He's just got to kind of settle down a little bit.
There's a clip circulating on Twitter showing with Carter Stewart Jr. showing off his Japanese language skills. And yes, he gets the Nihongo Jozu from the interviewer, but the guy's been studying down in the minors for a while. He knows how to pitch in NPB because he's been pitching on the minor league club for 4 years now? I'm thrilled to see him blossom into the player we knew he could become.
And that brings us over to the third place team, the team that lost our baseball for breakfast game this morning, unfortunately, the Chiba Lodi Marines. Take it away, Mike.
Well, when today started, they were in second place. Now they are in third. If you want to see how that happened and more, including some shenanigans, go watch the archive and VOD of the Baseball for Breakfast broadcast. It's currently up on the channel, and it will remain up there. So if you have, about 3 hours exactly to kill, it's up there. So go watch it. Anyway, they are 6-4 in their last 10. Overall, they're playing well. They won an important series against Nippon Ham. I say it's important because at that time, Nippon Ham was in third place, and you want to create, fourth place, and Chiba was in third, so you want to create as much space between you and fourth place as possible. Same power and offensive issues that they've pretty much had all season. I don't see anything really changing with that. The wind isn't stopping it anytime soon at Zozo Marine Stadium. They're winning games. When they're slumping, they're staying afloat. They need to continue to beat up on their opponents in B class and then not get swept by A class. I think if they can do that, they can stay in A class. Just win the games you have to and take a game out of a series every once in a while if it's a very strong opponent like Oryx. And that's all I got on that.
And now that I would say quite surprisingly brings us back to you with the out of nowhere fourth place Rakuten Golden Eagles.
Yeah, they are no longer in the basement, no longer a punching bag, allegedly. They're 8-2 for their last 10, which I did not see coming at all. I think that's the largest last 10 they've had in podcast history so far. Maybe the change of the batting coach from a few weeks ago is finally taking effect. Maybe they're maybe whatever he brings is actually starting to kick in. And the thing about the wins that they're getting is that they're convincing wins. They're not like 2-1. They're not like last minute walk offs. I think one game against the Fighters was 2-3, but like they swept SoftBank.
Yeah, and like not just swept them, like they beat up on them.
They pretty much brutalized SoftBank. One of them was like 6-0, I think. I think another one was like 8-2. They're currently in another series with Nippon Ham. Oh, also they took 2 out of 3 of Oryx. So, like I said, they're beating really good teams. They're not just squeaking a win out here or there. They're pretty much playing really well. So the strategy for them is pretty much the same as it is for Lotte. Just beat up everyone else in B class and play really well against the opponents in A class when you can. And there's a good chance they could finish in A class to end the season and enter the playoffs come the end of the season.
Man, that would be one heck of a surprise considering the way we were talking about them the last few weeks. If they make the playoffs, I don't know who's going to miss it out for them, but that would be shocking.
There's still a lot of baseball to play. A 9.5 game back is not insurmountable.
And also, I'm fairly certain they listen to us because every time we say anything, the opposite happens. So
they just like to prove you wrong, Mike. That's what's going on here.
Him, Polanco, everybody, really.
And so that brings us over to who we were singing the praises of for surprising us last week, the Nippon Ham Fighters, who do find themselves in 5th place, though I would say it's not a terrible 5th place spot. Take it away, Gabe.
Kind of. They lost all 5 games since our last broadcast. They're 2-6 in July. That is the second 5-game losing streak in this young season. Not ideal, and it has affected their standings. Part of the reason why is record in coin flip 1-run games. All the last 4 runs or losses were by 1 run. The Fighters are now an NPB worst 9-22 in 1-run games at the time of recording. The reason I say they're coin flip is that you expect to be about even in those. Sometimes you get the lucky breaks, sometimes the luck breaks you. 9-22, that feels unsustainable. And I'm not sure if it's a matter of the bullpen needs to tighten up or the offense needs just a couple more pokes over the fence to avoid getting into a 1-run situation. For what it's worth, the best 1-run record in NPB is the Tigers at 15-7. The best in the Pacific League, the Lotte Marines at 19-10. I mentioned Takayuki Kato earlier in the Around the Horn. He hasn't allowed more than 1 walk in any start this season, which is absolutely ridiculous. You get 1 free base from him, none more than that. So there's exactly 8 starts where he's allowed 1 walk, and the rest of them, nil. Just quick mental math, because I know you guys are running on like 7 brain cells between the 2 of you. And a tip of the cap to SIS_baseball on Twitter for this one. He posted which NPB hitters swing and miss the least often. Go Matsumoto of the Fighters, last year's batting champion, tied for second at only 9% swings and misses. In first, Akira Nakamura of the Hawks at 8%.
And so, finally, that brings us to the bottom of the league. Now, when we talk about all the other teams, we've got our proverbial A class, the teams we think are going to make the playoffs. And then we had our B class. And in the B class, Nippon Ham's been putting some stuff together. They had a bad week this week, but they've been all right. And Rakuten has had a miraculous week. The Seibu Lions are not one of those teams. I think they are C class at the moment. They are performing very, 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 very poorly. They went 1-5 this week, but the only saving grace being a 1-run win over the Hawks, which they barely won. They almost lost in the last inning. It's not been good. Now, you were talking about teams that win and lose 1-run games. I think winning 1-run games might not be a talent, but I think losing 1-run games might be a sickness. And man, I think the Lions are sick because it happens a lot, and it just doesn't ever seem to work for them. I know I just said they won a 1-run game, but they came so close to losing it, and it's just been so rough for them all season. Like I've said it before, but it just seems like they have no heart sometimes, and it just seems like they've lost all spirit. I know I'm usually trying to be positive, and there's some very mild positives, like Chihiro Sumida picked up a solid win, earlier this week, and Kaimatara continues to be good, but he can't win games by himself. The offense continues to sputter and sputter and sputter in a way that even the Marines can outmatch usually. And at this point, I don't know. Like in the same way that we saw teams starting to separate themselves from the top, this team is really starting to separate itself from the bottom in like a very brutal way. If the MPV draft worked in a way that the other drafts and other sports worked, I would say just pack up your bags and try to get Rintaro Sasaki. But even then, it's going to be a total luck of the draw if they even get him. So I don't know what the Lions are going to do because they are in a sad state right now, and I got nothing else to say, unfortunately.
Well, I can at least chime in that the Lions are only 10-16 in one-run games. So it may feel that way, but it may not be as bad as you're making it out to be there,
It
Jimbo.
feels a lot worse from what I've been watching. It's I don't know, maybe I'm just bad luck, and every time I watch a one-run game, it's like they lose, except the one I watched today.
All right, well, while I've got the thing up on my screen, the other records 13-8 for the Buffaloes, 14-13 for the Eagles, and 14-8 for the Hawks. I think the reason why the Hawks and Buffaloes have so few one-run games is because they either beat you out by a lot or they get pummeled. So there's very little middle ground there.
And so that brings us over to our next segment. How are familiar faces doing stateside? You guys have any updates on Japanese players in America?
Shohei Ohtani is leading the majors in triples now. Not just the Angels, but the whole league in triples. He's had 6 games where he's been one hit away from the cycle this season alone.
Man,
the guy's a unicorn.
We got to come up with a new term because I feel like there's other unicorns in the world. He's like I don't know. I got nothing.
A mystical beast.
Yeah, I'm way too tired to come up with
a legendary
creative.
Pokemon.
One of those mythic Pokemon you only get from the events, and a shiny, to boot.
And a special congrats to Kodai Senga for being named to the National League All-Star team. The All-Star game is going on as we're recording this in Seattle, Washington. He joins Ohtani as Pacific League alumni representative. Specifically, this is Masataka Yoshida Erasure, and I will not stand for it.
So I had an idea. Instead of us always taking questions from the fans, I thought maybe we could start engaging the fans and asking questions of them and us. Try to create a little discourse, try to get a little conversation going, and engage people. So I came up with a question today for both you, the fans listening. I would love to hear your opinion, and you guys that I'm talking to right now. What is the fiercest, most intense rivalry in the Pacific League? What is the Red Sox Yankees? What's the Barcelona Real Madrid? What's the Celtics Rangers? What's the Chennai Super Kings Mumbai Indians? What's the Leafs Habs? Celtics Lakers? Auburn Alabama? You get where I'm going. What is the hottest rivalry in the Pacific League, in your guys' opinion?
Hawks against everyone else. At least that would have been my answer if you looked just in like the last decade or so, because back in the 2010s, yeah, the Hawks really did kind of run the Pacific League table. There were 4 years in a row where they won the Pacific League pennant, won the Japan series, didn't really face any stiff competition. They beat every single Central League team once in that decade in the Japan series. It's a ridiculous run for the team. A less glib answer, I think I get the sense that the Marines and the Lions fans don't like each other too much, given that they're both Tokyo area teams, and the Lions have always had a run of success and sustained success that Marines fans have been somewhat jealous of. The Lotte franchise hasn't won a pennant since the 1980s. The Lions won it last decade and have the second most Japan Series championships after those Giants guys. That's my hunch. I feel like that's the real hated rivalry, the Tokyo suburb derby.
Yeah, that was always kind of the sense I got from kind of my general understanding of things. It seemed kind of like the Lions and the Marines were very hotly contested. But Mike, what do you think?
So I actually did look into this with a lot of my Japanese friends that are much, much older than me, to put it lightly. And the answer I got a lot was actually Nankai and Nishitetsu. So the Hawks and Seibu in particular.
Okay.
I can see that because those were the historical two big powers in the PL, with Kintetsu or Lotte poking their noses in and say, hey, we're a team too.
And then one that they told me about, but I didn't really get it, was Nankai and Nippon Ham, going back to their Toei Flyers days. So they couldn't really like it was kind of explained, but I didn't really get it. It was just like, yeah, it was a rivalry, and I was like, yeah, but why though?
Because it's Tokyo versus Osaka. You have to remember, Michael, back in those days, the Flyers played in Tokyo and the Hawks played in Osaka. It's the Boston, New York thing all over again. Anytime you have the two major metropoli in a major sport against each other, there's gonna be some animosity.
You see, I figured it was Nippon Ham is a food company and Nankai was a supermarket company.
Wait a second. Did you just refer to Boston as a metropoli?
Yes, I'm trying to make up for
provincial.
the fact that they occasionally catch strays from me, and I'm trying to make up for it. Okay.
I just feel like metropolis is a strong word for Boston.
Isn't Montreal like 2 buildings and a fake Eiffel Tower?
Yeah, sure. I would never say Montreal's a metropolis. I'd say it's a quasi-major city, but I wouldn't call it a metropolis. I'd call Toronto a metropolis.
Toronto is New York as if it was run by the Swiss.
Huh.
Or at least that used to be the nickname.
I mean, to be fair, Toronto's also every single major city in every movie ever at this point.
That's true. Rare is the movie where Toronto actually plays itself. I think there's like Scott Pilgrim, and very little else comes to mind.
That's like the
I
only
think
one
I think we were in a
of.
Star Trek episode recently.
Then again, I went to Philly once, and I was.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I know. I can't have anything really positive to say. There was a guy who accosted me on the road. My friend and I were driving along the highway back to New York, and some guy just pulled up to us and started screaming at us, saying he hates Canadians. It was really weird.
Oh, that was me. Sorry.
You know, Mike, that explains a lot. And you have to sit with us for every single broadcast. Speaking of which, Jimbo, when is the next baseball for breakfast? You got a couple coming up.
So yes, we do have a couple more baseball for breakfast coming up for all of you who would like to join us. On July 27th, we have the Eagles and the Fighters. That should be a fantastic game. I mean, hopefully if the Eagles can continue their winning ways. And then we also have on August 8th, just a few weeks later, the Hawks and Eagles. And then September 12th, Fighters and Buffaloes. And October 1st, Marines and Lions. So we got a ton more games coming up for you guys here. We are so happy for all the support of both the podcast and the live games we do. And I think that more or less brings us to the end of the show. Did you guys have anything else you want to sign off with?
Only to chime in that the Midnight Matinee, the final one of the season, will be on August 20th. But Jimbo and I will fight over who gets to do the October 1st Sayonara season broadcast. That's going to be like, I think that's the closing weekend for the Pacific League. That's going to be a fun one. Problem is, it's a 1 a.m. start.
And so, thank you once again for joining us from the very early morning baseball game to the show right now. I have to
Jimbo? Mike, are you there? The podcast is still recording, guys. Oh Lord, I hope I have control. Anyways,
I don't want to go to school.
We'll catch up with these two once they've gotten a couple of nights of good sleep. See you next week, everyone. Be well.
Be sure to like and subscribe for more English content. Sign up with Pacific League TV for live game broadcasts, including interleague and farm teams. For viewers in the US or Canada, watch PL games with English commentary on FTF Sports, Tuesday through Sundays at 1 p.m. Eastern, or without commentary on WatchDingo.com simulcasts under the Baseball Network.